The Senate Banking Committee hearing room was usually a place of hushed whispers and dry procedural talk. But on this day, the air crackled with a different kind of tension. All eyes were on Senator Tim Scott as he leaned into his microphone, his voice cutting through the silence like a razor. "Mr. Washington," he began, every syllable dripping with condescension, "you talk a lot about uplifting communities. But let me ask you, what have you actually done besides giving flashy speeches and movie lines?" It was a surgical strike, quick, precise, and utterly designed to humiliate Denzel Washington, the iconic actor and cultural figure, right there on national TV with millions watching. Scott, the polished South Carolina Republican, clearly thought he had lined up the perfect target, a Hollywood megastar dabbling in politics. He leaned back, a smug smile playing on his lips, convinced he landed the fatal blow. But Denzel Washington didn't blink. He didn't lower his gaze. He didn't shuffle his papers. Instead, he smiled. That slow, confident movie star smile. The kind that makes grown men second-guess themselves. Because what Tim Scott didn't realize was Denzel had been waiting for this exact moment. He came prepared. He had facts, receipts, and that signature Denzel delivery that could leave a room frozen and an audience hanging on to every single word. And he was about to deliver a response so sharp it would leave the South Carolina senator absolutely speechless and have every corner of the internet on fire within minutes. This wasn't just political theater anymore. This was about to be a legendary takedown, a masterclass in dignity, facts, and raw charisma, and it would define both men. To truly understand this moment, you have to know who these men are. Tim Scott, the only black GOP senator, polished and practiced, building his brand on conservative values. He'd climbed the political ladder, comfortable in rooms where his identity often gave him instant credibility. This comfort had made him arrogant. He thought no one in D.C. could shake him. Then Denzel Washington walked in. Not a politician, but a cultural icon. A man who carried respect from every block, every neighborhood, every generation. A man who never needed politics to have power. Denzel built his legacy on standing up, speaking clear, and never folding under pressure. When he spoke, people didn't just listen, they leaned in. This wasn't just charisma, it was relentless preparation. Denzel refused to be caught slipping, especially in spaces where men like him were always underestimated. The tension had been building for weeks. Denzel had been outspoken, calling out systemic failures, and had already directly challenged Scott's record. Now, it was all coming to a head, live and unscripted. Scott continued his attack, emboldened by the cameras. "I've been in Congress for over a decade," he boasted. "I've passed real laws, helped real people. You've been out here making speeches, being Hollywood famous. But where's the real impact? Where's the legislation? Where's the substance?" It was public belittling. A seasoned senator trying to punk a cultural icon in front of millions. Scott's tone reeked of superiority, believing his title gave him the right to belittle anyone without a political resume. He assumed visibility meant emptiness. Denzel sat motionless, eyes locked, shoulders square. His jaw tightened for just a second. He didn't blink. He didn't flinch. He calmly placed his pen down, adjusted his cuff, and stared right through Tim Scott. The room froze. Every soul in that room knew it was about to go down. Scott, however, mistook Denzel's silence or fear for hesitation, for weakness. He pressed on. "We're here to work," Scott said, now self-righteous. "This isn't Hollywood. This is real life. Mr. Washington, you represent voices crying out for change. Your people deserve more than just Instagram clips and sound bites. They deserve real work, and I don't see that coming from you." He crossed the line. It's one thing to debate someone's politics. It's another to question their integrity, their love for their people, their right to stand at the table. Republican aides across the room scrambled. Democratic aides were frozen, some grinning. They knew Denzel wasn't the kind to let disrespect slide. Meanwhile, Twitter was already in full meltdown mode. Hashtag Tim Scott and hashtag Denzel Washington climbing the trending charts. The silence from Denzel? It was a storm gathering. Scott leaned in for what he thought would be the finishing blow. "Listen, Mr. Washington, I'm not trying to be disrespectful," he said with fake humility. But if you want to be taken seriously in this building, you've got to do more than just be famous. You've got to deliver results. You could learn a thing or two from those of us who've actually been in the trenches of governance. But what Scott didn't realize was that Denzel Washington had just been handed the perfect alley-oop, and the dunk that was coming would be heard across the world. While Scott was busy running his mouth, Denzel Washington was calm, deliberate, pulling up receipts. Not tweets, not viral quotes, but real receipts. Numbers. Facts. This was Denzel Washington discipline, preparation, meeting opportunity on live TV. The committee chairman gave one last-week attempt to steer the hearing back to normal. If we could, return to the witnesses. Too late. The room was now Denzel's stage. And when Denzel leaned forward, when that steady, commanding voice cut through the chamber, the entire atmosphere shifted. Well, Senator Scott, since you asked about accomplishments, let me break it down for you. Denzel's voice, calm, controlled, devastating. See, while you've been busy being the Republican Party's favorite blackface to trot out on Fox News, I've been doing real work for real people. The air left the room. Calling someone a token, that's a political knockout punch. But Denzel wasn't done. First, let's talk about substance, Denzel continued, eyes locked on Scott. In just my first year advocating in this arena, I've co-sponsored 47 major initiatives focused on economic empowerment, criminal justice reform, healthcare expansion. That's more than you managed in your first 3 years in Congress. But I guess you were too busy learning how to smile for cameras instead of helping the people who sent you here. Scott's smug grin vanished. His face tightened. Since you're suddenly so curious about impact, Senator, let's get specific. Denzel picked up his phone, scrolling casually. Last month alone, my outreach initiatives helped 847 families navigate federal red tape, veterans benefits, housing support, immigration cases. How many families did you help last month, Senator? Or are you too busy rehearsing Senate speeches? Denzel wasn't about to give him space. And since you like to bring up my community's struggles, poverty, crime, broken schools, let's talk about what I've been doing while you've been up here delivering empty sermons about personal responsibility. What followed was a masterclass in public demolition. Denzel laid out receipts with the precision of a trained tactician, securing $3.2 million for after-school programs, working on new policing models that drop violent crime by 15%, driving funding to expand Pell Grants for HBCUs. With each fact, Scott's shoulders sank lower, his aura dimmer, his whole argument evaporating. And you know what really gets me? Denzel said, his voice sharper now. You stand there lecturing me about social media, but you clearly don't understand the world we live in. Social media is how many of my people stay informed. When I post a video about federal scholarships, that hits 100,000 kids who'd never hear it from a press conference. When I tweet about local community events, I get packed rooms because I meet people where they are. It's because I'm holding powerful people accountable in ways that actually reach the people who need to hear it. The room was dead silent. Everyone knew they were witnessing history. You know what really eats at me, Senator? His tone dropped, almost a whisper now, which somehow made it hit harder. You got the nerve to question my commitment to my people when you spend the last 5 years carrying water for a party that has worked overtime to crush the hopes, the futures, of people who look like you and me. Scott fumbled, trying to cut in. Mr. Washington, I'm not finished. Denzel's voice went ice cold, slicing right through Scott's attempted interruption. The command in his tone shut the whole room down. You want to talk accomplishments? Fine. Let's talk yours. Denzel leaned forward, fire behind his calm delivery. You've been in Congress over a decade. So tell me, Senator, what exactly do you have to show for it? You voted against Medicaid expansion, denying health care to thousands of struggling black families. You voted against raising the minimum wage, keeping your own people locked in poverty. You voted against student loan forgiveness, trapping an entire generation under crushing debt. Each you voted against landed like a body blow, methodical, brutal, unstoppable. Scott was getting his political resume ripped apart, brick by brick, on live television. And after all that, you have the audacity to question my qualifications? Denzel's voice rose, not in anger, but righteous power. Let me remind you of who I am, Senator. Long before I stepped into this room, I stood with folks fighting the system. While you were voting to confirm judges who tore away rights, I was in communities defending them. So, when you ask me about accomplishments, understand this. I never forgot where I came from. I never sold out my people for a photo op. And I've never, ever been so desperate for approval from folks who don't respect me that I'd throw my community under the bus just to feel accepted in rooms that were never built for us. The final line sucked the air out of the chamber. Scott's comeback was weak, trembling. Mr. Washington, that's completely inappropriate. Denzel's glare was icy calm. You know what's inappropriate, Senator? A black man in your position, using Republican talking points to tear down another black man actually doing the work. You don't know what I do because you never cared enough to find out. And what's really inappropriate is this phony little performance you just put on, thinking I'd sit here and take it. And with that, Denzel leaned back. Absolute silence engulfed the room. Scott, frozen, fumbling, defeated. The committee chair, desperate to regain control, called a recess. But it was already too late. The internet detonated. Hashtag Denzel Destroys Scott trended globally. Traditional media soon followed, dissecting every word. One viral clip put it perfectly. He didn't just offend himself, he dismantled Scott's entire existence. That's how you handle disrespect in real time. Conservative social media, eerily silent. Behind the scenes, Tim Scott's team was in full panic mode. His presidential dreams? Finished. Political insiders were blunt. If you can't handle Denzel in a committee room, you're not ready for a national campaign. Denzel Washington, on the other hand, his star somehow shined even brighter. Emails flooded in from activists and community leaders. Democratic fundraising exploded. His voice became the sought-after message of the moment, invited to headline countless events. Beyond just two men, this moment revealed deep truths about American politics. It showcased the rising power of a new generation, unapologetic, prepared, unbothered by stale norms. It proved that the days of sitting quietly while being disrespected were over, and it exposed the growing cracks in the GOP strategy of using figures like Tim Scott as shields. Because when the confrontation came, the shield cracked. This showdown proved more than just a clash of personalities. It exposed three undeniable truths about the new era of politics. First, identity without integrity means nothing. Denzel stood tall not just because of who he was, but because of what he represented: preparation, authenticity, and an unshakable commitment to community. Second, the days of seniority guaranteeing respect are over. Denzel didn't have a political title, but he had something more powerful: credibility earned over decades and the ability to connect with people on a human level. And third, social media isn't a liability, it's a weapon. While Scott mocked Denzel for movie moments, Denzel was speaking directly to millions of people traditional politicians couldn't even reach. In the digital age, it's not the loudest voice in the room that wins. It's the most real voice. The fallout was undeniable. Tim Scott's influence cratered. Denzel Washington became an unstoppable force. This wasn't just a viral moment. It was a historic turning point. Denzel Washington didn't just survive a political ambush. He flipped the script. He turned an attack into a masterclass. And in doing so, he reminded the world of one eternal truth: preparation beats position every single time. This wasn't about Democrats or Republicans. It was about respect. It was about truth. And it was about what happens when someone comes for you without knowing you've done the homework, and you hit back harder, smarter, and cleaner than they ever expected. Denzel Washington didn't just win that day. He shifted the narrative. He inspired a new generation to stand tall, speak facts, and never shrink when the pressure's on. And for every person who's ever been underestimated, this moment was for you. If you found power in this story, make sure to subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss these moments of real leadership. Drop a comment, share it with someone who needs to see it, and remember, when you show up prepared, you don't just defend yourself, you make history.